Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dynasty Grind, a live show we do every Wednesdays at 9:30 till we get tired, run out of questions, or just, accidentally what do they call it, log out. Because that's just how we are. We handle everything from Dynasty to all types of fantasy football questions. If you have any thoughts, questions, ideas on the subject, drop them whatever chat box, whatever streaming platform you happen to be listening to us happens to have, probably under our faces or to the left. Zach Reed is backstage with us. He's going to be Dynasty grinding with us tonight, I guess. And happy to be here. Happy to see you all. It's mid-rookie season for me, or my rookie drafts. Telling me I'm an auto pick because I haven't been paying attention, and that's fun. Hey, Zach, how's it going?
Not too bad, not too bad. Peter, just put in my rankings and then just let it auto draft off that. You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I have finally made a draft list for MFL, so I'm just going to start importing that. So that was fun. I also got deep in the weeds on hit rates for DLF ADP, which has been fun. We're basically, I don't know. I haven't finished yet, but one of the things I want to talk about is how, because we're so bad at rookies, basically rookie picks become more wide receivers. Rookie picks become more valuable. Deeper down you go, the more likely you are to draft a wide receiver. That's what I've decided. Like an end of the first draft pick is just about the same as the start of the draft. There is a little difference between the top 3 picks, but after that, it's pretty even. Pretty even. May as well check Brian Thomas. I'm just saying. He's down there. See if anyone is actually with us tonight. Alex was in here long before I was at 8:45. Let me see. 12-team 1 QB have Love, Rogers, Bijan Robinson, Gibbs, Pickens, Addison, Watson, JSN, Downs, Pop, D, Schultz, and Likely. Have the 101, 104, 105, 110, and 111. Was offered Garrett Wilson for the 104 and Pickens. Thoughts?
I don't think I do that.
1 QB.
I don't think
I 1 QB though.
Oh, okay, maybe in 1 QB. So who's that? So you got Neighbors, Harrison are gone.
Dunze or Worthy, surely.
Dunze's gone. Bowers. So yeah, I don't mind that, and I don't mind giving up. Yeah, I don't mind giving up Pickens.
Yeah, I mean, I might. If you were thinking about getting Bowers there, which is touch high, but about right, then maybe I'd go Bowers just because you're going for something a little bit different in terms of upside and long-term potential. But as far as value goes, yeah, it's right about there.
I'd take Bowers at the 104 pretty easily, I think. But you may get him he's got the 105. You may get him at the 105. So
true.
I might counter that, Alex, and see if you can get that same deal for the 105. And if not, then whatever, do it for the 104. But like at least give that little bit of play, because I think if you're guaranteed to get Bowers, I'm a lot happier than if you might get Bowers.
Who else would he be coming up to get though?
I mean, he could be coming up to get Odunze. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know how that
That's
falls.
true.
So
some people will come up to get Odunze.
Yeah.
Harrison, Neighbors, Odunze, Bowers are the top 4. So yeah. Yep. I was also thinking the 105 for Pitts in a 1 QB again. Yeah, 5 is fine, but I'll probably take one of those picks and either get Odunze, or Worthy, or get Bowers and use the other one to trade. Would probably be the way I would think.
And I don't mind staying there and taking Bowers and either that's what you said, some combination of Brooks, Brian Thomas Jr., Worthy. I don't mind that either. And I think that the more I think about this, the more I have Brooks up in that kind of same conversation as
that's fine.
as Thomas and Worthy. So
Yeah, I've got him. Do I? That's why it's kind of ranked as Thomas, Worthy, Brooks in ADP or by consensus ranks. Yeah. Oh, I got it. I've got Brooks closer towards the end of the first round, but I definitely don't hate the idea. I've been thinking the minute he gets past Worthy, I'm like Brooks and Benson. Where are they? What do I need to do?
that's it. And it's always, to me, you're always splitting tiers toward running back, like splitting ties toward running backs. Like that's just kind of how I play rookie drafts. So
yeah. I was looking at Fantasy Pros ADP, and redraft ranks are not kind to Brian Thomas. They have
I
him
think they're
15th
wrong.
overall in this class. Yeah, me too. But that might offer some edges for teams or leagues where people are more fantasy pros or redraft oriented.
Yeah. Well, and I think that Mike and I talked about that this past week on the Dynasty Dummies, where I think Brian Thomas is probably the identifiable steal of this first round.
Yeah.
I think he's going lower than all of the other players that I think should be around him. So he's going lower than Odunze, like invariably. He's going lower than Worthy usually. And he's going sometimes lower than Benson. Brooks, not Benson. And so like to put him down and he's going behind May, he's going behind McCarthy in Superflex. So to put him down in that, 110, 111, 112, and that I saw your tweet where you credited me for you trading into a 26 first. And I'm like, no, that wasn't what we were saying. We're saying that you could get the same tier in that top 5 and then another, like, I think really good wide receiver at 110, 111 with Brian Thomas or Worthy. Like, if I can get into Thomas, Worthy, or Brooks by moving down 2 or 3 spots in the top of this draft in Superflex, I'm going to do that all day.
Well, I already had a 110, and so I traded down in the same tier and just got a 26 first as well instead.
Yeah.
And at the 110, I actually ended up trading it for Jordan Anderson. So
I don't mind that. Yeah.
Wow, there was a whole bunch in that trade.
Peter wheeling and dealing on the clock. Rookie drafts.
I was also thinking about we just went through that, didn't we? Yeah. Genji, talk to me. I'm literally doing that. 101 Caleb, 103 Neighbors, 105 traded for AJ Brown. Bowers at 107, which is a steal in my opinion. 108 McCarthy. I'm getting more comfortable with it, but I really don't like any of the QBs except for the top 2. McCarthy's fine. He's fine. That's fine. Coleman at 201 is about where he's going, so that's fine. He's not who. I really hate the start of the second round because those value picks, based on who's available and where they were drafted in the NFL, they're about a first-round pick. There's a strong tier there, so they're great, but I don't like any of them. I want to reach on a running back, and so I've been looking to trade back or trade out at that particular range. But Coleman's fine. Coleman's a fine pick in that range. I guess. I love Karam. The 106, that's about right. Right at 109 is about right. He's at end of the second tier running back run. Burton looks like a little bit of a value this year. You got him a little early here, but that's fine. Sonot at 112, again, a little early, but it's within range. Franklin at 301, he's hot. People really, I thought after his draft he'd be like a 4th round scoop for me in a few places where I could stand the wide receiver roster. But he's going in the 3rd round. That's, again, high for Franklin, but you look like you're targeting your players rather than the exact AEP, which is the way to do it. I think the bookie at 307 is absolute steal. 309 is high for Vidal, but about where I'd take him. So I don't care. Tracy, I've seen a lot of Tracy picks, and it always just makes me feel like the good players are falling, like we skipped a pick. I'm not hot for fantasy on Tracy, but it's about right. Yeah, all these ADPs are about right, and it's just about whether you like or you don't like the players. They're a little high after Crum, so you don't have any great ADP wins, but in a rookie draft, I don't necessarily care about that as much. Anyone stand out to you, Zach?
I like most of the strat. I'm surprised Genji didn't end up with Odunze after all the Odunze talk. But like, this is a really nice, obviously Caleb Williams at 101. You kind of. I still am hemming and hawing between him and Daniels as the one.
It's interesting because I would agree, yeah, but Dynasty is hemming and hawing over Harrison or the QB, and it's a you can actually end up walking away with both of them if you get the right setup, thinking you're only getting one. It's weird.
Yeah, I think that's probably what I would have done there is take Harrison. If I had the 1 and the 3, I would have taken Harrison with the 1, knowing I get the quarterback left over that I like at 3.
Yeah, you've mentioned that.
And then I'm pretty happy. And then if I'm Genji, that means that I either get Neighbors or Odunze there at 105, unless I would rather have AJ Brown, which I probably would. But yeah, that's a nice draft.
Tell you what, I keep spying Dallas Goedert as a tight end steal where his ADP's at, and I keep screwing it up because someone else in the draft has also got their eye on it. And if you're leaving for a late tight end and you screw it up, you're left with nothing. Damn it. Damn it. Anyway, currently in second draft, went 101. Okay, Caleb. Neighbors at 4. Solid. That's a really great pick, actually. Yeah. Has a 9, the 10, the 11, the 2. Should I take Benson at 2-1? Benson at 2-1 is fine. Yeah. I mean, it depends who else goes, but I like it.
I would go just exactly what you're saying, Genji, where like I would take if you got 109, 110, 111, and 201, yeah, Worthy, Brooks. I'd take Brian Thomas over Bo Nix, even though
I wouldn't take Bo Nix.
Yeah, no, even though Bo Nix is a quarterback, and there have been a couple of favorable pieces about him out recently. I'm still not on the Bo Nix train, and then I don't mind taking Benson there at 201. I don't think that's egregious at all. It's right in that range where you start looking at what's falling to the second round of rookie drafts. I probably would be in. I mean, that's close to where I'd be taking McConkey, but I don't think you're far off with Benson there. So, and I'd also be thinking about Roman Wilson too, although I think probably the running back is a better way to go.
Yeah. Quarterbacks aren't easy to get in Superflex, so Bo Nix is definitely in play for me here. It's in play. It's the right range. I'm just not doing it personally. I mean, that's where my process / eval comes out.
The problem is good quarterbacks aren't easy to get. You can get Bo Nix every single year, and then the next year or the year after you cut him. I mean, you drafted Bo Nix every year. Like, it's the same story, and the NFL does the same thing where they're like, we have to get quarterbacks, and no, you have to get good quarterbacks, because it doesn't do you any good to draft a bad quarterback and then continue to be bad. So I think that theory trickles into Dynasty, but is carried over from the NFL, where teams think they need to, like the Patriots thought they needed to draft Mac Jones. The Steelers, thought like it's what we do. Like we've identified the position as valuable, but it's only valuable if you have a good player at the position.
Wentz went 0-2 on Odunze, so I guess he stinks now, guys. Yeah, I mean, just get on board. Get on board with he's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't think he stinks, but Genji, I think there's going to be a buy window on Odunze sometime this year. Three factors. I don't think that Caleb Williams throws for the volume that people think he's going to as a rookie, because rookie quarterbacks don't generally do that. So there's one. 2, I think Odunze is clearly the third option in that offense. I don't think that you get too many people arguing that DJ Moore and Keenan Allen both will drive more targets than Odunze. And 3, I'm a little bit worried about Caleb Williams translating to the NFL in terms of fantasy points for wide receivers. Not in terms of him being a good quarterback, but if you watch him play, he wasn't great for Jordan Addison. He wasn't great for Taj Washington. Those are the types of players that create that early separation and get open. But what would happen is Caleb Williams would break from whatever the original play was, start moving off script, throwing off platform. And so receivers are having to make their initial route and then readjust to whatever he's doing. I don't think that is a great recipe for fantasy success, because I think a lot of times you see those really easy, quick PPR throws, the little slants and the digs and that sort of thing. And they're really going to have to rein him in. I don't think that there was a lot of accountability for Williams making plays outside of the framework of what the design play was. And I don't think that's great for his receivers. I think he's a good quarterback. I don't think that it's conducive to easy plays for his receivers.
Don't know what to make in the next one. QB horde strategy is really dumb. I don't know, it's dumb. And there's an idea to it. But though, just a content creator put it on a show to have doesn't merit and true merit to actually win a championship. Some of it's league dependent. I'll make 2 basic points about the whole get as many quarterbacks as you can. I think the edge in it on a week-to-week basis is more heavily reliant on your willingness to stream within your quarterback horde than I'm comfortable with doing. Like, I'm not starting Jared Goff over Kyler Murray this week just because of the matchup. Like, or at least not committing to having done that. And 2, it's more of a building strategy. Quarterbacks have more value insurance. They're more likely to be able to trade. They do have value windows, even if they're not, to Zach's point, good quarterbacks. But I don't know it's entirely devoid of merit. I don't think the whole idea is like just a content creator ploy, as it were. No. It depends how you define QB hoarding, perhaps.
Well, and not to call anybody out, but like, you've seen it be success. I've been in leagues where John Hogue has been successful with it. I've been in, and I've seen leagues where Tommy B has been successful with it. And so it's not just grab all the quarterbacks, but there is there's a multi-layered strategy to it. I think what happens is you hear the buzz, you hear the QBX, or you hear the arms race with the Tommy strategy, and you get that. It's the same thing with zero running back. Like, you hear that catchphrase, you hear that buzz, and you're like, oh, well, zero running back, I can't draft any running backs. It's a terrible strategy. And that's not what the strategy is.
You do have to play it smart. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the same with any strategy.
Yeah. True.
So
I wouldn't say it's completely devoid of merit. There's an idea there. I've seen John be very successful. And if you want a strategy that doesn't mean outside of progressive struggle, but you're still competitive, which would be the thing, you can be with progressive struggle. But QB hoarding is good for that in a super flex. Like, that's the thing. Like, if you want your team definitely not to be dead by year 3, and I've had some dead teams by year 3, it just doesn't go your way. Players injure out or they flame out. QBs aren't going to do that long as career arc, long as value career arc. Like, Jared Goff still in the league, guys. He's still worth a first or plus at different points of the year. Like, that's where we're at.
Well, and the other part of that, Drew, is if somebody is employing that QB horde strategy, that means that there is something else, there's value elsewhere that falls. So that's where you can sit there and go, okay, I can late round quarterback. Or for me, if I'm playing in a tight end premium that is high enough, so like I play in a bunch of 1.75 tight end premium because that's what Russ's leagues are. I can pivot to a tight end, a top tier tight end as my quarterback too. And so there are ways to get around that if you understand what you're doing. So like it's a viable strategy, but it's also a strategy that you can attack and beat if you're paying attention and doing things right. So like there's no, to me, it's really difficult to find a strategy that is dumb. I mean, there are a few, but like
there's some that aren't strategies, are just things. Like robust
but
running back was just do the opposite of wide receiver. I was like, that's not what it's based on. All right, no testing, no proven wins. Yeah.
But that's different.
I would say strategies in general, they're loose ideas at best. I don't think they should ever be employed as actual strategies. But the lesser common ones, like zero wide receiver or lesser running back, if you like, hero running back is just zero running back, to be honest. They're harder to attack if you're looking to employ it. You're harder to be attacked because one of the ways it gets attacked, like Zach said, was other things fall. But if you're the only one doing it, you don't cause as many waves, and so it's harder to attack you. There aren't as many players falling because you're just the one. Whereas like zero running back, 3 or 4 teams are doing it, and suddenly you're finding a lot of running back values that weren't there before. So it has that in its corner. It's not as popular. As it evens out, it could lose that edge. But it's not. By drafting quarterbacks, you're letting one player fall a little bit. Whereas there's half the league playing zero running back, 6 players are falling every round, if you know what I mean. So it actually has that going in its favor a little bit. It's a little harder to attack that way. I think in-season play is more difficult than people realize with the QBX stuff because of the nature of streaming it. And I think it's very hard, as simple as it sounds, to employ well in a dynasty. But yeah, I mean, that's why you got to listen to John, listen to Tommy B, and actually try to employ it. I disagree with them a lot, but I definitely think their ideas have value. I talk to them. I've been on their podcast, if that's what we're talking about. So yeah, I wouldn't say it's just an idea, because it's definitely not just a content thing, because I know both play that way. That's how they play. So they're not just saying it to get clicks or whatever. That's how they play.
Tommy's is interesting, like the arms race where he's trying to get the top 5 quarterbacks, and then you almost
more aligned with myself.
You almost put a stranglehold on the league, because not only are you getting an advantage from the 2 quarterback positions, but you're also taking away 3 of the top scorers. And if you can do that, like if you get 5 of the top 5, or in that range, like there is a fairly big drop off between the elite quarterbacks and the rest of everybody else. And so you get that there's a little bit of an edge. And then also it makes the quarterbacks on your bench insanely valuable in terms of trade. So if you have an active league, you can hold people hostage with your quarterbacks that aren't actually scoring for you. All they're doing is playing defense. It's the Parcheesi, it's the building the wall, so your guys can run around the board.
I'm with you. Zach, caught you on Heath Cummings' new Dynasty show. I didn't even know. Great to see you out here having your say. Cheers.
Thank you.
Did you have fun? I missed that one.
That was a lot of fun. Yeah. It's a bigger platform than often I'm used to, but fun. Like Heath was great, and rookies are right in my wheelhouse. So we had a good time.
Cool. What's up, guys? Rookie draft, Superflex tight end premium finally happened. Traded the 201, the 204, I'm guessing, and the 301 for Kincaid. I think that's pretty good for Kincaid. But you also trade Kincaid. Oh, I'm reading this wrong. 201, 204, 301, and Kincaid for the 111. Kincaid.
So you move up a spot, back a spot, back 7 spots, and Pitts. I prefer Pitts to Kincaid, and I think your movement didn't really change a lot for you. I do like the
shuffled around the tier.
I do like moving up to the 111. To me is a higher tier than the 201 because I think you got a shot at Brian Thomas at the 211, and I don't think you have that at the 201. So I think you're getting Brooks or Thomas at the 111. I actually really like this trade, Josh. At first, I thought it was a kind of a whatever lateral. I like the move up from 201 to the 111. I actually do think that's significant, even though it's only 2 spots. I like the move up, and it is a move up from Kincaid to Pitts.
Yeah, I would say that's the biggest jump. Yeah.
And to me, the 204, 205 doesn't matter, and the 301 to 309 honestly doesn't matter. So I really like this.
I like it. I would say Thomas, I've seen him at the 202, not consistently, but it happens. So I'm not sure how much they level, but it is, you're securing a shot at Brian Thomas a lot more. Yeah, I like that. Team accidental logout. Yeah, that's me. It's happened. Also, I'm a crappy team and have Hurts and looking to trade him. I find it really difficult. I've got Mahomes or a great quarterback on a crappy team. I find it difficult to find the right trade, but let's go with it. For someone who is offered Daniels and Pearsall, Jaden Daniels, not Jano Jones, Pete, Jaden Daniels. Yeah. I think should be getting more.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Daniels is a maybe Hurts, and that's, you're looking for safety as a builder, and that's
so maybe Josh. What I did in a very similar situation in a league where I actually had just, I know you said you're a crappy team. I just won the league, but my team is a little bit older, and I think that you can make moves that kind of propel you forward and kind of continue that dynasty. And what I did in a very similar situation in terms of players and picks, I had Josh Allen. Josh Allen, Hurts, pretty similar. I honestly think that Josh Allen, you're going to see a little bit of a different Josh Allen this year. I don't think he's got quite the receivers that he's had, but that's a whole other. We'll set that over here. What I did was I traded Josh Allen to get Daniels and to get Jordan Love. Now, I think I can trade Jordan. Well, don't make faces yet.
No, I see where you're going.
I think I can trade Jordan Love before the season happens to get back up into a quarterback that I want, into a Dak Prescott or into a Kyler Murray, that sort of thing. It's an active league. But I think that's really what you want to do is trade your elite quarterback for Jaden Daniels, who I think has potential to be in the back end of that elite tier. He's not going to start that way, but I think eventually he grows into it. And a player that is already producing as a viable starting quarterback, and one of those players that is a little undervalued, even though they're good. So in that Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott, that range. And so that, I think, is what I would try to do, Josh, is move into multiple kicks at the quarterback can with Hurts, but also continuing to have the potential upside eventually of Daniels. Like, I like the Daniels get. I don't think Pearsall's enough to get you to where you want to be.
Hey, fellas, happy schedule release day. Oh, yeah, that too. I see the NFL hates us fantasy geeks. They sure do. What a week 14, eh? I honestly haven't looked, Gary, but I'll take your word for it. I guess I should have. I haven't seen much about it. Have you?
I have not seen the full schedule. I have just scrolled through the LA Chargers Twitter account and how they compare all their opponents to Pop-Tarts.
I saw that too. Yeah, that's what I did.
That's all I've seen.
Yeah. Andrew A., would you guys pick between Dalton Kincaid and Evan Ingram at tight end? I'd take Ingram.
Yeah.
Ingram. I'm torn, but maybe I'm overthinking it. I think so. Kincaid's got the potential of maybe doing something like Ingram did last year. Ingram had a break there in between, but he's been at least a good and had an upside at tight end. And the age really doesn't matter to me at all. If you want to break down the situations, I guess maybe you could talk yourself into Kincaid, but I'd just take Ingram. It's not that hard for me. I'd rank Ingram a lot closer to the top 5 than I would Kincaid right now.
Yeah, and I to me, tight end is a points proposition.
Yeah.
And it's Ingram. As much as other people like Kincaid, I mean, like if you're in an active league, you probably could trade Kincaid for Ingram plus. I think you could, Peter. I think the value wise, Kincaid is valued higher, even though Ingram is better. But I would rather just take Ingram and not have to worry about the headache of trying to trade him.
That would be me too. As I said, I think. Drew, above, I meant to write QB Horde is really dumb. Hope.
Oh, we got you.
I think we got the message. Yeah, I think we're on the same page. Frank in the chat. Hey guys, happy Wednesday. Who is the player out there right now that you still think is undervalued? I think we've already mentioned Thomas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
I'm finding him a lot.
Are we this time of year when values start to lock until the season starts? Are we talking like Frank? Are we talking like overall player pool, or are we talking rookies? Because I think there are two different conversations to be had. The rookies right now, I think there's a lot of flux, and Peter absolutely hit it. To me, it's Brian Thomas is the obvious one. I still think there's a Jermaine Burton, a little bit of an undervalue on Jermaine Burton. I think that Ray Davis, because he landed with the Bills and because he landed behind Cooks, is being a little bit undervalued too.
I was just reading a couple of my league mates bragging about how they are one of the few people chasing Ray Davis in the mid-second, and I'm like, I just haven't picked him there, but I've had him there since forever. Like, it's not. I think if people are forgetting, that's where around about he should be. But I'm like that with all the late second round running backs this year. I'm like, I just collect them all if I can. So there's Lloyd, there's Davis. I don't think Bucky Irvin down that low.
Is absolutely.
Good. I like that one too.
Yep.
And I even I get when those are gone, Braylon Allen's usually just sitting there, and I get why he's the worst of the bunch right now, landing spot. But I'm like, he's also a really good prospect, and situations change. So that seems like a pretty good get to me down there as well. Yeah, sure. Come on, guys! All these QBs are crapshoots.
I mean, including of course they are, but they're valuable in superflex leagues. But I think there's a clear delineation between Williams and Daniels and everybody else.
I was going to say, crapshoot is relative, and that's how we rank, right? Like, we don't know the future, so what are the odds of you rolling snake eyes or not? And that's the order. Williams and Daniels, you have the best shot you can of not rolling snake eyes, I think. So, yeah. Is that craps, snake eyes? No? I failed. And Genji, I just think it'll be easier to move off QB after year one than if Worthy or Thomas disappoint.
I mean, maybe, unless Bo Nix starts and is garbage.
I mean, we have the comparison from last year, right? JSN, Bryce Young, who's easy to trade. I would say they're both uphill struggles to get a decent value on. But I get what you mean. Hey guys, if healthy, is Eric All a kind of guy that can be upper end, especially with landing spot? Blah 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 blah. I think Eric Hall is an absolute steal in the fourth round. I'm default order drafting him there, and I feel like I'm either the stupidest man in the world because it's like any fourth round pick, just put Eric Hall in your queue, you're gonna get him. And I thought by now everyone would have gone, ooh, Cincinnati landing spot. And almost no one has, apparently. So, yeah, I think it's actually due. As far as profiles go, it's a difficult one. Of all the targets he got in college, 32% of them were in Iowa. I know that because I happened to make a tweet about it. Like, is it possible to call a tight end in Iowa tight end if 32% of his targets, only 32% of his targets came there? But outside of that, and the other percentage of his targets, he was good. So, yeah, I like his build is about right. And his performance on the field in college was about what you'd want for an, as you called it, upper Upper end tight end. I definitely think this is in his range of outcomes. Landing spot only matters so much, but getting Cincinnati doesn't hurt, to be honest.
Yeah, I've ended up with Eric all in, I think, 2 of the 3 leagues that I've drafted so far.
I'd
Rookie
have
drafts.
to check, but unless I don't have a later pick, I think I got him.
Yeah.
It's not been a challenge. It's not like I'm Eric Almighty.
Well, and he's one of the guys that I will do the buy on credit. Trade a future fourth to come in, and boom, here we go.
Midway through the season, QBs get hurt sometimes, not a lot. Like we do see quarterbacks come every year, and I think we forget that at the start. But you shouldn't expect it. Like, I mean, it's not exactly common. It's like the bottom 5, bottom 6, 7 QBs get hurt out of 32. It's not everyone. Knicks will be starting. I think here's a problem with me and Knicks. I think if he's starting, the worst hit to your value happens. Like, I don't think we're going to be very happy watching Bo Nix play football in the NFL. It's an evaluation thing more than even will he start thing. I think his chances of starting aren't so bad this year. And I'm not rooting against him or saying he's an absolute awful player. I just don't see a profile that would make you happy that he was a quarterback in the Superflex.
Yeah.
Yep. Do I need a 4th quarterback? I don't think you really need 2. I mean, you can play at either extreme. So it depends on the rest of the stuff, right? I'm getting nods. Okay. What if Bo Nix ends up being good? That'd be great. That'd be awesome. And it's happened before. But
yeah. But the thing is with that, he would have to be incredibly good for people to come back around to him being good. Brock Purdy was nothing. He was great in the games that he played, and he was still nothing. I still heard people say, no, it's not Purdy. It's going to be Trey Lance. It's, it's really hard for us to change our minds as a group.
Crazy, isn't it? If Purdy had Bo Nix's draft capital, he'd be like a top 12 quarterback right there.
Yeah.
In the NFL, probably too. They'd probably value him more because of it too.
But not if people didn't like him, and that's the thing. There's such a psychological aspect to this because we hold to our priors. There's a phenomenon that happens called anchoring bias, where we get this idea and we cling to it. And so even if Bo Nix ends up being good, it's going to be really hard for all of the community that thought Bo Nix was bad to come around to Bo Nix being good.
I think that's fair.
I hope he is.
Not a single person, either of my leagues wants to trade away a running back. It's ridiculous. I'm joining a startup and I'm going to be round 1, quarterback round 1, and drafting only running backs. Sounds fair. It's a dual-edged sword, isn't it? Running backs have no value. Trade for running backs, but they have no value, so no one's willing to give them away. It's like, no, I'm not trading Aaron Jones right now. Come on, man. I would say I've picked up Najee Harris, Aaron Jones really easily in a couple of my leagues. So, I mean, depends on your league. And I'm happy doing that kind of thing. Aston Eckler as well. Dang, I'm late. I knew it. Even after you DM me to check we're going to be on, I knew you were going to be. Eric, Jalen Wright and Marshawn Lloyd seem to be around the same spot in ADP. Do you guys have a strong preference between them? And if so, why? I like Lloyd because he's got less hype. If I see one more, this 4th running back has basically already taken the job of the guy in front of him who is actually quantifiably. I think he's a lot better and was good last year despite his high touchdown rate. I'm going to tear my running back hair out. So Lloyd falls to you at a very good ADP. Whereas Wright's getting drafted by a truther in your league every time.
Yeah,
and I don't okay.
For me, Eric, there's a group of Corum, Lloyd, Irving, Wright, Ray Davis that all are like back to back for me, and so it's whoever falls to me, I'm going to be happy with. I'm not gonna worry about making that decision. I think Marshawn Lloyd is probably the best runner in this class. I think Jalen Wright may be the best fit. Like I as soon as he got drafted by Miami, I tweeted out the GIF of Chris Farley in the coat, and I tweeted out fast guy in a shanty scheme, because that's where we're at, like Shanahan offense, which is what is going on in Miami, where you're getting a ton of space and you're letting guys, hit that hole and go, is exactly what Wright needs. I think they're both good and they're both in good spots, and so it just depends on who falls to you, where you're at in that. To me, it's probably mid-late second.
Yeah. Gary Russell, Week 14 schedule has 6 teams on bye: Baltimore, Indianapolis, Houston, Denver, New England, Washington. Some of them don't. What a way to start the fantasy playoffs in the majority of leagues. Fair point. There's always like a crunch between the NFL reality and when your fantasy playoffs are.
Luckily,
they
New
do
England
hate
doesn't
fantasy
matter.
nerds, though, so it might be pointed. You can also mention Will Levis. Do we really want to, though?
Yeah.
I'm fine with Will Levis until someone talks him up, and I'm like, nah, I'm not in on the pushing his ADP. Like, he's fine. Train for a second because you need a quarterback. Yeah, sure. Or vice versa. Outside of that.
I just want Pete to read it once.
I dare you say, I estimate will insert random prediction. Be a very fine runner of the football. There you go. I'm not saying it 5 times fast.
I now want to put that in this week's open for the Dynasty Dummies. I estimate.
You guys do any film work? Okay.
That's you.
On Jalen Coker and Ania Smith on the Eagles. If so, thoughts, sleepers.
I have not watched either of those two. They were far down any list that I had, and they remain there. It's kind of one of those. So this is the point in the program Cypher where if I haven't put eyes on them, I'm probably going to wait for a drumbeat from training camp. And like, if it's a player that you think could potentially be some, I don't think Aeneas Smith is going to amount to very much. I think he was, I watched just minimal amounts of him, and he's kind of a gadgety receiver running back combo, whatever. I think he's probably going to be special teams. Coker, fine, but this is the type of player that you throw on the back end of your roster after the rookie draft happens. You cut a couple of the players who are clogging your roster. Add Coker, and he's an easy cut if he doesn't hit. For me, it's Taj Washington at the back end of he's not being drafted. I'll go in as soon as the draft is over. I'll put a $1 waiver claim on Taj Washington. I'll drop whoever it is, and that's how I play that. So
you need a 4th QB like Peter needs another cigarette. So a lot. I'm getting cerebral tonight. Look out. I appreciate it. Who you guys hire on this year long term? Worthy or Brian Thomas Jr.? Same tier. I like a lot. Worthy I have higher.
Yep, same thing. Echo.
Which is frustrating. One of us is meant to hate him. I think I'm meant to hate Brian Thomas Jr., and I don't. By the way, I got into a fun conversation of why would you take Brian Thomas Jr. when he only had one good season at the end? He's basically Laquan Treadwell. For a start, as one of the guys who didn't like Laquan Treadwell and got roasted for it, no. Secondly, the alternatives all have that same problem, but with a lower best season. Leggett, Pearsall, they all only have 1 year over that magic threshold that you want. So what are we doing here? Like, take the best one. Andrew Carlson, we're sleeping on Wilson. Yeah, I think Wilson. And the other guy you mentioned, Burton, I know they're slipping my net. I keep seeing that they're slipping everyone else's and think about putting them in my own. And then I'm like, more wide receivers, really? No. But yeah, they're definitely slipping it down ADP. And like I said, I was just breaking down Fantasy Pros versus DLF. And DLF and Fantasy, I was like, who cares about those two? Whereas Fantasy Pros, the redraft ranks are going, hey, actually, we have some interest in them, which is like what you're looking for when you do that kind of comparison. So both kind of stand out that way. And Zach's been mentioning them for a minute.
Yeah, and
not
I
me.
think
I haven't seen much, but
I think maybe the overall Andrew, the overall community right now may be undervaluing him, but I don't believe that's going to be the case the closer to the season you get. Because you're going to start hearing this cacophony of voices because not everybody is plugged in right yet. And not even all the analysts are plugged in right yet. You're going to start hearing this the closer we get to the season. The more people have rookie drafts, the more rookie minicamp gets talked about, the more OTAs, and then training camp gets talked about. All of a sudden, people will realize, oh, Roman Wilson is probably the player who ends up in that Deontay Johnson role out of the slot, and I think he is potentially a target earner there. I think he's a good player, and probably is better in Pittsburgh than people think he is right now coming out of Michigan.
I should change the name of the stream to the Wilson and Button stream because in a while, everyone's going to be talking about how no one saw that coming or mention them after the draft or whatever. And I'm going to be like, yes, I did, but I was lower on them. And I'm going to take my L or W either way. But I'm never going to remember which stream it was. That's the thing when you do 3-hour streams. You're like, I know I talked to everyone about this, but it was on a stream. And I have no idea where to refer you back to prove it. Outside of look at my ranks that have dates on them, but then you have to trust me. Puff Pass Kick says, where are my manners? Good to see you both. It's been so long since I've caught a live one. It's nice to have you back. Puff Pass Kick. Yeah, it's nice.
Absolutely. I see you in my DMs though every now and then.
I don't. It's weird. People don't talk to me. What are the odds Brian Thomas is good and worthy of both being good? You're asking a broader question there. A draft class, we're very lucky if a draft class brings us 6 good wide receivers over the first 3 years. Like, that's the best case scenario. And by good, I mean at least Michael Gallup. The chances of a draft class of doing that, well, I can think of 2 that have done that since 2000. So it's not impossible. And I think these things are cyclical. And we're kind of due for one of those. I don't think the odds are great that all 6 of my favorite wide receivers in this class hit, which would be required, but I have no cerebral way of determining if these 2 specifically, what are the odds of these 2 specifically hitting. I think both have pretty good odds individually of hitting because I like them both, but, odds are that at least 1 or at least 4 of the ones that I like fail. Zach, do you have any way of answering that?
No, I think you kind of touched on it, though, they're not dependent on each other. Like the odds of them hitting are not connected, even though it feels like it, because Peter did a brilliant show, Genji, last week, and you should go listen to it if you haven't, on hit rates and why hit rates are a great way to think about things and a terrible way to think about things when you start talking individual class and especially individual players, because it doesn't work that way. Like, that's the average. So it's great in big samples and like the kind of broader overview. But when you start to look at, what are the chances in 2017 that we had 8 running backs hit? But we did, because there were 8 really good running backs. I think there are 5 really good wide receivers in this class. Maybe they don't all hit, but I think there are 5 wide receivers that have a chance to hit, like really easily identifiable chance to hit.
Mm-hmm. Andrew Carson, what are your thoughts on Tanner McCloud? I can't say that. RAS score of 9.13, which is nothing to me, but I am aware of RAS and I enjoy the work Math One does. Solid pass catch of 500 plus yards. You say that like a good thing. And has Joe Burrow throwing passes.
So he was he was one of the tight ends that I mentioned on the very back end of the show that I did with Heath Cummings, where and again he went to Cincinnati too. So I think Cincinnati is onto something with how they view tight ends, because they're finding really athletic tight ends. And so yes, I think he is potentially a nice steal. If I draft Eric All in the 4th round, I'm probably putting a waiver claim in on Terry McLaughlin too. I don't mind doing that.
Am I obligated to take Worthy if I have Rice? No. Well, the things you have don't affect the things that you should take in a draft. Jermaine Burton is elite. I don't know about that. But he's definitely a really interesting value and got potential in his landing spot with his college profile. Sorry. Boring as I can say it, but there you go.
Genji has a type 2, and it's opposite of the type that I have. But I do think Burton is being undervalued because of the off-field stuff, and I think Cincinnati was happy to get him in the 3rd. And I think he can be a good, he really reminds me of Drake London. To me, that's the type of player that Jermaine Burton is. Now, do I love Drake London? No, but do I think Drake London is a good wide receiver and could potentially be like a wide receiver 2 fantasy producer? Yeah. And I think Burton has kind of that similar upside. It's going to take T. Higgins moving somewhere before Burton earns enough targets, or has potential to earn enough targets, because I don't think he's in the same tier as Chase or Higgins. But I do think he's pretty good and could end up being a steal. Elite is a little bit of a stretch. A lot of a stretch. But he's good.
Stretch is a stretch. Yeah. Tanner had 1.4 receiving yards per team pass attempt in his final year. That's okay. He's hovering around a pretty decent tight end. Sorry, I had never actually looked at him. Drop 2 PPR. Eric Gray, Ronnie Rivers, Jeff Wilson. You can drop all of those.
Yep.
I might keep Wilson. I know is a running back, so I might keep that.
I'd keep Eric Gray if it were me.
Okay.
But
that's the tight end.
He's a running back in New York. So
well, there you go.
The Giants. But
Ryan Flournoy is going to step over Jalen Talbot and be worth a 2nd-round pick by week 11. I mean, Talbot's not exactly something with height. It's hard to step over. But sure.
Flournoy's not very good either.
At least Talbot was good in college.
Flournoy was good in college, but his college was like Southeast Western State, West East college. Yeah. University.
Baker Kid 2. 10-team 1 QB PPR start 10. I have young nucleus of QBs, wide receivers, Kyler Stroud, London Wilson, Marvin Neighbors, Worthy. All those wide receivers apart from Wilson are maybes. Just going to say that. I think maybe London. Maybes. I'm still questioning it. But I'm thin at running back. I have these 25 first. What running back should I be? I would keep 25 first at this point. I think it's going to be a running back class as well if you're interested in running back. So don't think that way. Unless you're in the final looking to win, or in the home stretch and you're winning. That's when you start thinking about, what do I need to do to make the moves to win? Right now, and again, I think you have more maybes here than you realize. Not that I don't like the maybes, but they're maybes. And if you start trading your draft capital to fill in the missing spots, and then it turns out you have a lot more missing spots than you thought, that's how you wind up man, I got to build again. So just stay the course, look for good trades and good value. Hopefully by mid-season, at least you have Wilson, Harrison, and Neighbors all doing pretty well. I think Worthy will do pretty well, and then you'll be feeling more confident. Hopefully you're staring down the barrel of a playoff run, and then you can start looking around the league of what running backs and what teams aren't could I maybe make a draft for, and then maybe on the outskirts think about throwing those 25 first in. But there's no need to think that you have to trade them. That's how you build up and build up and build up, and league mates, I have good players and draft capital. In
a one quarterback league, I think I would probably trade Stroud because I think he's got the most value. I prefer
Okay.
Kyler to Stroud as a producer. The community prefers Stroud to Kyler, like hands down. And I think if you were going to get a running back, that's a good place to start, where you might be able to get into an actual. I mean, there aren't very many right now, so that I guess that's probably part of the problem is there aren't very many identifiable running backs that you're going to be able to get that you're going to want long term. So probably Peter.
All the running backs I could mention to answer the second part. What should it be like? Way too expensive. It's Bijan Robinson. It's Breece Hall.
Yeah,
nearly said Bryce. I know. It's that crew. Or, and these are the ones I'm actually executing trades on in my leagues. It's Austin Eckler, it's Aaron Jones, it's Najee Harris. They're not ones that you like. But like those are the mid-second round values. I'm like, if I could use running backs, I'm throwing them there. Or you could draft a couple of these rookies in that range. But I like the proven guys. If I actually think my team could use some.
Well, and I think the rookie draft has already happened because he's got Harrison Jr., Neighbors, and Worthy. So
right. Doesn't mean you can't trade for them, Zach. But okay. I mean, I can't even deal with the amount of positivity coming off these emojis. Guy Russell, how do you feel about JSN going forward?
I would be in favor of that. He should go forward.
Yes. I would enjoy him going forward more often. It's worth late first. He's someone I just kind of have to walk the line on. Addison, sure, good rookie season. I'm happily trading into Addison. My strategy, my dynasty play is increasingly becoming about target focus and make up your mind on sophomores. And with JSN, it's just not bad enough for me to time to get rid of him, and it's not good enough for me to go all in, which is like the nightmare scenario for me personally. But yeah, I think he did good enough. I think at his current value, I would add him on teams, but you have to see him as a points proposition at this point as a sophomore. That's the only thing, and that's kind of team dependent, which is why I'm not all in. So yeah, Zach, do you think you're a little firmer on JSN than I am, right?
I mean, you can't be as firm as I was last year with what he did as a rookie, but like, and with the re-signing of Lockett. But yeah, I think he's still a good player. I think you definitely have a chance to buy low, but also, Gary, understand that if he doesn't do it this year, the chances of him doing it diminish. And if he doesn't do it next year, then you basically have a nothing. Like the chances of a player hitting after their third year is like what? Nico Collins? Like that's it. Like it doesn't happen very often. But yeah, like I like JSN, but with the caveat that you got to be paying attention because he may turn into dust real quick.
Who are the six you like, Pete? Genji, okay, maybe but you can check out my ranks anytime. My top 6 wide receivers are Harrison, Neighbors, Worthy, Adunze, Brian Thomas, and McConkey just makes it into the top 6 there. Guys I like, those 6, basically. That's what my ranks are meant to be. Outside of flyers and less likely, but I like something about their profile. Those are the 6 that I think are most likely to be impactful to your fantasy squad. In the first 2 years, at least first year. Yeah. I think you have the same top 6, I'd imagine. Maybe not.
Yeah, but for me, it's in terms of receivers. Is that what he's talking about? Is the receivers? Yeah. So for me, it's Harrison, Neighbors, Worthy, Thomas Odunze, not necessarily in that order, but whatever. And that to me is the 5. I don't have who's the other one you put in there?
It was Ladd.
Yeah, see,
you just want me to name my top 6. I don't have him in that tier, but that's the 6. Because I think he's referring to when I said, occasionally a great class brings us 6 good wide receivers over the first 3 years. And I think the thing you have to remember with that is quite often it's one guy that no one saw coming, or few people saw coming, because there's always going to be someone that it's an Adam Thielen that's undrafted and rolling around down here. Isn't actually even listed as a 2014 wide receiver, but when you look, he must have been there in 2014. I was there, I know. But he didn't record stats. And then in 2015, he recorded stats, and that gets recorded as his first year when it's not. Those types of guys are going to break out through the first 3 years as well. So, like, we're just dealing with the rookies we know, even though we go pretty deep. So I wouldn't be surprised. If 6 break out, that I don't get all 6, I would be very unsurprised with that, to be honest. Brock Bowers just went 108. I'm on the clock. 108, man, that's good big. 109, 110, 111, 4 hours. And you know who's on the clock, man. Who's there? But I think Brian Thomas is probably there. I will be looking very strongly at him. McCarthy, maybe that's a similar range. McCarthy and May, if they've fallen, but the guys I want there are Brian Thomas and Worthy and Brooks.
Yeah.
So who's available?
Yeah.
Ryan Flournoy, I hear the name. I don't. Is the next Demario Douglas? That I might agree with, because I also kind of Douglas too. And that's a way better way to put it. Free on waivers, flip by the end of the year. If you can, sure. Sure.
So Flournoy, puff pass kick, Southeastern Missouri. He started off at Central Missouri, redshirted, went to Iowa Western Community College, then Southeastern Missouri. So he's like MapQuest. He's all over the place. He's printed out directions. I think he's got speed if he has a free release. So, like, he's fast downfield, can take the top off the defense. He's a very good deep ball tracker. So, like, nothing like Douglas if you're comparing them, like, player for player. I think he is a shark. He knows when there is a mismatch. He smells that blood in the water, and he attacks. And he can win with physicality, at least at a lower level. Now, the question becomes, can he win with that physicality at an upper level, at the NFL level? I don't think so. And are there going to be the mismatches for him? I think that's a little dubious too. He relies on that physicality too much. He relies on being big, and he's 6'2", 205. So he's big, but he's not that big. He doesn't win with nuance. He flattens out his routes. He gets too close to defenders and loses separation, and he's not laterally quick or sudden in route. So I think he's going to fall into that trap of he's either going to be a speed guy and doesn't get touched, or he doesn't create separation.
Tim Cree. I hope I'm saying that right. In total rebound, 1.3 Superflex 12 team. Trevor only quarterback. Roster depleted by previous owner. Daniels or Caleb will be available. How much should I consider trading down for more first-round picks, going all in 2026? I've been thinking about this a lot. One way to frame productive struggle is if you always trade your current first-round picks for next year's first-round picks, then you're always acquiring value. Now, the way we all make fun of that is eventually value has to become players. How are you going to do that? Blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, that's why it's a solid building strategy, and it's not like it's the only thing you have to do with your team. So you can actually make your team competitive and constantly be building value. So in that way, yes, you should strongly consider trading for future capital. You should also get a plus for the time. The time matters. This year's first should be worth more than next year's first, even though, and this is why it works for building and works in Dynasty, you know next year's first will eventually become equivalent somewhat of this year's first. In a vacuum, Zach, hopefully, when I stop talking, hopefully, is going to talk about weighting different rookie classes, knowing which rookie classes you want to target. And that becomes another nuance to the strategy that you can start looking at what you want to do. But yet, you should always be looking at it. And that's why it's solid, because it always works. Or it can't not fail. It's a Sashi Brown thing. It wouldn't fail if you didn't fire and replace and then spend the draft picks. So you have to be willing to keep up with it. So yeah, definitely consider it. Make sure you get a plus for your time. But even if you don't, 1-to-1, a 26th round pick has more value to a building team right now than a 25 round pick. Because if you trade it, the next year you have 2, and you do it again next year you have 4, because it mounts up pretty damn quick if you successfully do it. And eventually you're dominating an entire first round, and you can do a lot with that kind of draft capital power. You don't want to do 1-for-1, but even in theory, even 1-for-1, it works. But I would always make sure you're getting a plus of the time. Do you have to? No. But if you're actually pure building, and this is the way I play Dynasty, as much as I like to stand my evaluations, I want to take my risk here, I think you should be player neutral. I think Williams and Daniels look like as surefire hits for fantasy as you can get at the quarterback positions. Maybe a few that look a little bit more certain, but within the same tier. But I think as a builder, you should be willing not to be fearless, but fearful, and go, this way I know I'm not getting a negative, and this way there is a potential of having a negative outcome. And your job, it's your team, you can do whatever you want, but your job as a builder and for a dynasty roster is to avoid that risk until you have the latitude and ability to not make the mistakes of the previous owner and say, I'll make up for the negative outcomes when I can, because eventually it becomes too much and someone else ends up taking over the team because you're too much of a coward to do it yourself. That's the way I think of those guys. Not really. But yeah, I've babbled on for a while. You should strongly consider it. Zach, I should read the rest of his thing here, I guess. But how much should I consider trading? I would trade down if you're getting down for a plus of a 26 first. I think that should be your goal, just to kick the can down the road and multiply your draft capital. And that way you're certainly moving your value. You can also do it with players, but I mean, the default way is picks. So that's the way I went with. Zach, please say words that are better than mine.
Well, I think you say I'm in a total rebuild. It's sometimes you think you're in a total rebuild and you're not. Like, it's very rare that I see a team that is like complete total rebuild. And I know you said roster depleted by previous owner. I would start looking at what is on the roster that doesn't fit the way you build, Tim, and start by seeing if you can move some of that. Now, I don't mind moving that 103. I talked about this. J. Mike and I did an entire show this week on the Dynasty Dummies where that was part of the focus, where if you can trade out of the 101, 102, 103, move down to, I like to stay in the top 5 if I can. With this, you may be better off moving down further. But if I can get the 104 or 105, and if you see a team that has multiple first round picks, if I can get back into the 110, 111, I'm going to do that. If I can't do that, I like the idea of Peter saying get a 26 pick. The problem with that is it's really difficult to find quarterbacks. You're going to have to, like, to me, this is a potential like trade into a quarterback, or
I would say I should have probably said 25, but I've been jumping 2 years out so consistently these days. I forgot. Sorry, Karen.
No, that's fine. And like, if you can get into a quarterback with that Jaden Daniels pick, who is already an established player, if you can get into Herbert, if you can get into Burrow, if you can get into Kyler Murray, if you can get into Dak Prescott, I'm going to do that. Even Jordan Love, and I know that, Peter, you turn your nose up at Jordan Love, and like we both don't necessarily believe long-term in Jordan Love, but I think the community does, and it's an easier piece to get into. I mean, even if you got into someone like Brock Purdy and Tua and got a plus on top, like that to me is a really nice move, because now all of a sudden you have 2 quarterbacks. You have more capital going forward. If you can get into if you can trade the 103 and get into Tua or get into Purdy and get a 25 first or 26 first, Like, I'm happy with that because I think Tua continues to have value long term. I think Purdy continues to have value long term. All of those quarterbacks that I just mentioned, Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott, like I think they have long term value. And if you can get a sweetener on that for somebody who's really excited about Daniels or Caleb Williams, like I am interested in doing that. And then you get a competitive piece that you already know is successful and another building piece, for the future. And so I think that's how I would do it. The issue with trading back in this class, if you are a non-competitive team and moving out of that quarterback, so now I think you have a worse chance of hitting on if you take a quarterback. If you move back and into a Drake May or a McCarthy or Bo Nix or what Penix, like I think those players are really distinctly less likely to hit than Daniels or Caleb Williams. And also you trade into two complete unknowns in a draft class that is already happening. So like their value is going to fluctuate during the season. Whereas if you trade into something that's pretty secure and something that is only going to increase in value, that to me is a better building strategy.
I think it's also a little league dependent. Like I love leagues that just leave the door open. Everyone's rebuilding, so you can just be the active crazy guy sweeping up the lesser enjoyed, like Jordan Love, like those falling running backs I was talking about. A building team shouldn't be interested in those things at all. But if your league is mostly those guys, it leaves this window open for you to be an active, give me points now team. I think that's a wonderful way to play. It's a lot more fun. There's a lot more immediate gratification as well. And I've played that way, and I will. But I think my base and what happens in what I find most successful in most leagues, and what I would say is my building strategy, not that I don't think it reaches the level of strategy, is to the one thing I've got is patience. I'm not winning this year, so I'm going to use it. I'm going to slowly build up a year. I'm going to set my base, as it were, square my feet level with my shoulders so I can make a good push off in a particular year. And like I say, I don't know enough about 26 to say that's a target year, but it's okay if it's not, because I can move stuff around before if I'm just looking for a target year. And when I find one, I can move whatever value I have to try and attack a specific draft class if I want to do that as well. But I'm just going to square my base and try to acquire future draft capital. And then when I have enough of it, and maybe hitting a few players, because it's not the only thing you're trying to do, not just trying to acquire first, then, like I say, you've got your feet squared with your shoulders, and you're ready to make a firm push. To the point that year, you're suddenly one of the stronger teams. You have draft capital and good players, and the league starts to, what's going on? Well, this is what I planned for. It's slow and it's boring, but it's using the one strength you have. You have patience to spend. So as long as you can be patient, I think it works more often than the other way. But yeah, Zach's right. If you can get competitive quicker, I'm always interested in doing that. I will attack a league that way. I've also been in leagues where you try to go both directions, and leagues like, no points for you. Also, no value. Just sit there and be bad. And it's like, well, this is frustrating. And that's when you listen to Russ on the Dynasty Trade podcast, the Trade Addicts podcast, and you pay attention to everything Matt Price says, because those guys get leagues moving and to try and get trades going so that you can actually start moving in a direction. I'm not that good at that, but those are the guys I try and pick their brains on how to do it when it's more difficult sledding. Well, Zach and J. Mike Check and the Dynasty Dummies, they have some psychology going too.
Never heard of them.
Me neither. I made them up. Brendan Turlington. Yes, that's a perfectly ordinary name I nearly butchered. 12-team Superflex, half-point PPR, start 9. Your roster doesn't matter to what your question is, by the way, but it's nice to know. Give the 210 and the 212 for Bo Nix. No. I mean, technically that's good value. I just don't want Nix shares. Like, I'd rather take my shot at whichever two running backs fall into that room. Sorry.
I'm
it's
still
good value,
sorry.
though, Zach.
No, I don't. I mean, I guess I don't mind doing that. You get a quarterback, like whatever. Yeah, do that, Brendan. 210 and 212 for Bo Nix. I would do that as much as I don't want to. I still think I'd trade Bo Nix after I did that and get something better than the 210 or 212. Like as soon as Denver's like Bo Nix is going to start, you trade him for a 25 first and you win.
There you go. Are you okay with Trey Benson? Is he good? Yes. Well, relative to this class, he's great. I think he'd be a tier 2 prospect in most classes, but up a tier. He's really solid prospect. Don't get me wrong. I'm not expecting the world, multiple top 12 seasons, but I definitely think he's going to be a good NFL running back.
This class, Genji, started at the Zach Charbonnet tier in last class. So like, and Benson is in that group. Like to me, there were 5 before the draft, 4 after the draft.
Yeah.
Because I think Braylon Allen, which was funny to me to watch Braylon Allen. But
I have no way. It's Keon Coleman this year's Quentin. I have no way of answering it. Quentin Johnson was a lot more liked. He was drafted a lot higher in rookie ADP. We all felt a lot more confident with him being there. We were confident enough to put him just behind all the wide receivers we liked, and then say that.
yeah,
I would say.
But these are all the wide receivers we like. This is the
King
guy
Coleman's
you
been
have
drafted
to draft
later.
Yeah.
And I feel like King Coleman's got more hype wind behind him. People liking Keon Coleman. And it's easy to see why once I've seen him speak in a few press conferences, to be fair. Easy to root for. But sure, I guess. I have no idea what this comp means. Zach, play style-wise, are they similar?
I think Keon Coleman is better at the catch point, but I don't think either of them create separation. Like that to me is going to be that's going to be the big issue with. I mean, Keon Coleman to me, Adonai Mitchell, that even Xavier Legette, who is a little better downfield, like long separation, but still is like that group of wide receivers that got draft capital, but is a little underwhelming. They're underwhelming because they don't separate, and it's really tough to succeed in the NFL without being a separator. There aren't very many Mike Evanses. There are a lot more players who do the Deontay Johnson thing and separate.
Yeah, those 3 were the guys I was planning on taking.
Set yourself an alarm for 3 hours and 55 minutes each time, so you can wake up, make the draft pick, and then rest on the clock.
Oh, can you see Rattler overtaking Carr? I mean, it's not impossible, but no, I think that's fairly low odds. They might get tired of Carr if he's having a bad season and start Rattler, in which case I think you'll miss Carr. Especially given the Saints have an out after 25, and 25 QB class isn't very strong, which makes it doubly sad they did nothing but get Rattler in this one. But I mean, yeah, it's not outside the realm. It's not something I'd be excited about having.
Yeah. It's a lot more likely to me to see the Saints sign a Minshew level quarterback and do that than give the keys to Rattler. I know he's got a job this year, but so does Derek Carr in New Orleans. Like,
true. It's weird how that changes. I got Coleman at 2-1. Yeah, that's fine. I'll take a shot. I think one of the things I've been thinking about, and I mentioned it a few times, is he's so easy to like so far, and he's got hype and draft capital. The minute he does anything positive, it's got to be an easy trade. Even if you don't want to trade him away, his value's got to be a little easier to turn into something else, like a single good game, a good catch, a good highlight will do. And everyone's just waiting to be higher on that kid, I think. No, not a player for player
Flournoy and Douglas, totally different.
The Dynasty asset comp more. Yeah, I get you. That's kind of how I think of the comps. Like, what's it going to happen in Dynasty? And Zach's like, they play nothing like each other. I'm like, I wouldn't know. Many thanks, much appreciated. No problem, Tim. And again,
Tim.
just ideas. I would check out many DLF creators. This building is like a Dynasty feature. Like it's what we've got that's different than Redresser. Everyone's got a different idea. Pick everyone's brain. Check out Lou Pasiga. He's got a whole system in place. J Mike Check from the Dynasty Dummies. I once see him get all picks 1 to 12 in a draft just because he thought it would be fun as a building strategy, and held his own little draft where he did little videos for each and every pick and made his league mates watch them. It was very good. So there are all sorts of ways of going about it, but those are our off the top thoughts. Also to segue, build off my last question, who, if anyone, do you like in the 25Q? I don't, Devi. I'll find out about them, but the same way I did this class a couple months before the draft, so I'm afraid not. Check out Travis May, though, by the way, and also Campus Canton. Thank you. Mr. Mooney, right? He's a guy that you always mention because I forget to mention him.
No, Felix Sharp.
There's Dynasty Kane, Travis May, Felix Sharp. Thank you.
Yeah, Sharp at Sharp Review.
Do you have any insights in 25? Sometimes you're a little ahead where you've watched tape and some of them were on the field.
There was nobody who was really exciting. I think so. To me, if you're talking Shadur Sanders up at the top of the class, that should tell you that this isn't a class that I'm as excited about as 25. And so, like, if one guy shakes out at the top of that class, I'll be impressed. And so it's and that to me is the trick with identifying good classes. Is not just about good players, it's about the number of good players. And so if you're very thin at quarterback, that necessarily means that the overall talent pool, because quarterback is the most important position in Superflex, if that's thin, then the draft class is thinner. So
it means running backs and wide receivers have to move up in ADP to account for that as part of it. So you're spending a lot more picks on the running backs and wide receivers, and that drains the value of the later round picks. Unlike this year where you're like, oh, we could get Worthy. I like him. Thomas, they become top 5 picks.
Yeah,
it's worth thinking about. Puff Pass Kiss. Let's talk about the sweet spot of the 3rd round, where Kamani, Estime, Bucky Irving, all these coin flip guys I seem to go in the same spot. Yeah. There's a whole bunch. There's clusters of them that I normally have in clustered at the back of the 2nd round. They fall to the 3rd, so I tend to get 2 shots at that same tier. It's pretty nice. Let's talk about them. No, I don't think we will. But who's standing out like in your draft later, Zach?
Well, so I am looking at this similarly to the way you are, where anywhere from pick 19, so what's that, the 207? Like from there beyond that, I'm looking at Blake Corum, Marshawn Lloyd, Bucky Irving, Jalen Wright, Ray Davis. Then I got a couple of wide receivers in there with like Polk and Leggett and Coleman and Javon Baker, although you're probably not getting most of those players at that point, so it doesn't really matter. But like that's where I'm taking those. And then and Adonai Mitchell. And then I've got Kamani Vidal. Like I like all of those players in the late 2nd, early 1st. And once you get into the 3rd, if those players are still there, I will absolutely take them. I don't have Estime in that same group.
Nope.
And the reason I don't have Estime in that same group is the pass catching. And I just like, he to me is a between the tackles grinder, is probably not going to be a pass catcher. And in that offense in Denver, it's an uphill climb for him to get enough carries to be viable as a fantasy asset. I think it's a lot more likely that he gets replaced by a running back who replaces the running backs that are already incumbent there than it is Estime takes over the backfield and then doesn't get replaced.
I've also got this floating Braylon Allen. I'm not targeting Allen, but after that tier of likely, playing time guys, there's often just I was just on the clock in DLF, so all my I think Vidal went and Lloyd went early in the second. Like they're sharp fellows, so most of the guys I'm targeting are also taken. But Braylon Allen's still there, and he just operates this floating separator between the guys that I want in that range and the next tier of players. And I'm just like, oh, yeah, Allen. So I ended up getting Allen. So I like him in that range too, I guess, especially once you get in the third round. 307 seems perfectly fine for Braylon Allen for me. Let's see. It's where Dantes Walker gets ranked. And like I say, I'm just hitting up the running backs in that range. And I still find Walker falling in. Like, if I'm going to take another shot at a wide receiver in this draft class, I'll take it in the fourth if Eric All's gone or I've already taken him for some reason. And so I've ended up with Walker a few times in the fourth just because he falls into there. Cowing. Baker is there by ADP, but maybe I'm not too heavy on him at wide receiver. But yeah, that's the fourth round, so it's kind of where I put there.
I keep ending up with so much Rasheen Ali in the fourth.
That's the other guy on my list. You see, I still got running backs I like in the fourth, but it's just a DLF leg where they're getting taken a little higher because they're aware of them, and so I'm like, okay, so I guess it's time to. What are my wide receivers again? Oh yeah, Walker, Cowing, maybe a bit.
Yep.
If all is gone, and he will be. I like this, by the way. Thanks, Tim. That's very nice of you to say. But I think this was after I spoke. Yeah, anything great. And then you talk. He's like, fantastic. That's better. Yeah, that's why I have Zaxby. I drained the clock, and then Zach comes in with the insight. Josh M. Really love Xavier Leggett. I got him at the 205 and feel like that's pretty good value. Do you guys like him or not? I like him. I don't like him as a first round NFL prospect going in the range. Like that early second round tier, I just miss me with it or I've overdrafted it. But the value of the players in that range is interesting because they're basically late first. So there's a really interesting trade area for me. But what I'd say about Leggett is I liked his profile. I think the upside is we get a season out of him. It's like a Benjamin, a Devin Funchess. And where you get a top 24 season and those who got him late, you're like, oh, yeah, it's going to happen, but you're willing to slide out of it. And so you get the value out of it. Like, that's what I got the vibes of Leggett's profile. Like, I think he was solid. I think it was a later breakout. I think he had a good breakout year that wasn't as impressive as Brian Thomas, and especially not as explainable when you look at the overall career arcs. But he's a solid player with really good draft capital. But yeah, there's some mumbling thoughts on Leggett. I'm not particularly targeting him, but I think he's solid.
I think that he ends up being a player that really needs to be schemed touches. I think he's really dynamic with the ball in his hands. He has the ability to run past everyone, which is an interesting.
It's always nice.
Yeah, well, and especially for a guy who's 6'1", 217 pounds, like he's a big, big, fast guy. He also will make plays in traffic. He does a really good job hands catching and cushioning the ball away from his body. So he's using his body to protect against defenders breaking up the pass. He can be used as a runner. He can be used in short, intermediate, and deep. He's got that real nice versatility that you look for, but it's not necessarily his fault, but he was involved in half-field reads at South Carolina, and half-field reads are garbage. I hate watching that. It's really hard to figure out what a guy is doing, and it's easy for them to fall in the trap of, I don't have to do anything on this play, and I think that's a bad habit to get into. I think he has trouble creating and maintaining early separation, especially versus man coverage, which is not a very good thing when you're playing with Bryce Young, because what Bryce Young needs to succeed is somebody separating early and often consistently. I'm not sure that Leggett matches up very well with what what Bryce Young needs. And I think he's also a less polished route runner than a lot of the wide receivers in this class. And so you're asking him to go to a bad team in a situation that doesn't necessarily lend itself to his skill set unless they really start scheming him touches. So there's a lot working against Leggett. I don't hate him as a player. I don't mind him at the 205, but at the 205, I would rather personally take Roman Wilson. I would rather have McConkey. I would rather have Pearsall. I would rather have any of those running backs, the Lloyd, Corum, Irving, Wright, Davis, and then it's in that Leggett conversation. But, Josh, you having Xavier Leggett in there, like, I could see him going all the way up because he's in a tier for me from 20 to 27. So what's that? The 108? Like 208, I mean. So like 205, 208, we're splitting hairs there. Like I don't mind
I think
that.
the draft pick was fine. Like he's 16th overall by consensus. It's well within the range. You're right between Zach and the average DLF rank. Put it that way. I don't think it was a bad value pick. I just, like I say, if he has a good season or a good spurt, I'd be willing to trade him. Traded Quentin Johnson for Spencer Rattler. Sideways
Everyone
move, but it's fine.
Lost. Yeah.
Everyone lost. Full stop. Alan Davis, the 2024 schedule is out. Weeks 12 and 14 each have 6 teams on bye. Yeah, it's been mentioned tonight. It's the first I've heard about it, but I really appreciate it, Alan. That does sound like it sucks. Fantasy Cares.
Hi, Bob.
Questioning.
He's just
questioning
thinking.
Glance.
Oh, I think he's thinking about Xavier Worthy.
That's what I would be thinking of. Baker Kid 2. Of all the Dynasty content creators, whose opinions do each of you value the most? My own. This is my damn team.
I love it.
As Zach, I guess.
So
that guy over there. And
I don't have a single answer for this, Baker Kid, because there are so many Dynasty content creators that do specific things really well. But I think there are very few that do everything very well. I think the closest to that's probably JJ Zachariason or maybe Adam Harstead. Like those two guys are the most well-rounded to me. But like if I'm talking about analytics, if I want that part of a it's Peter. If I'm talking about trades and that sort of it's Russ. If I'm talking about maneuvering in a league and basically bending a league to my will, it's J Mike at J Mike Check John McCann. If it is understanding the strategy of a league and kind of picking apart the places where you can gain an advantage, it's John Bosch. If I am trying to understand the way my league mates think and the little tiny advantages that I can gain by understanding the way the community is moving, it's Leo Pasiga. So there are a whole bunch of people, and I always talk about this myself. I try to take what I do well and use that, and then figure out what I don't do well and find the people who do that well and ask them and listen to them. I will see so much further standing on the shoulders of giants than I will beating my head against my own faults.
Yeah, find someone who's good at something and value them for that. But there's also a bunch of answers to each section.
Yeah.
And that's why I say my own, because I think that's kind of where you should be at, Baker Kid. I mean, you're not the greatest at everything, but ultimately you have to play your own team. And so you should get to a place where you're comfortable enough, you're taking in information from good people about what they're good at, but ultimately you have to squish it all together and make a decision. And that's okay. You're allowed to be your best source, if you know what I mean. Hey, Peter. Hey, Zach. Hey, Joe. Tim Shady. What's the likelihood of being ahead of the curve by betting against the hive mind? It depends in which way you're talking. Seems like it's hard for prospects to hit, so why not trade out? like out of the 102 for a future pick in Leggett. Well, like I said, I mentioned the productive struggle idea with rookie drafts in general, and I think it's solid. Yeah, it should always be avoiding lists and moving to next year. Technically, making a pick is a bad thing because you solidify that it has to be positive or it ends up washing away. And that's not great because you have to increase at some point. But and constantly trading into the future does that. But you have to also have a way to plummet. One of the better here you go, Tim. I think one of the better ways of applying lots of these ideas that we can accurately state is actually what Party Hat Guy himself,
Dave?
Dave mentioned last year. Never make picks, always trade for players or future picks. I honestly think there's a viable way of always hedging just by doing that. Because you can always come back into a rookie class in the sophomore or in the third year when we know who hits or who doesn't. There's always a way to get these players later if you don't mind paying more iron prices. And I think Russ used to talk about that as well. There's no shame in not making the bet while they're rookies, but just you'll get them later at a different point. Because you're not being as tough as it is for us to be fans. We're not actually playing fan here. And you don't just want your favorite players. Well, you do, but you don't just to play Dynasty. The idea isn't to have your favorite players on the team. It's to score more points than the other teams. And you can actually have a whole range of different players to do that for you. And so thinking like that, it's always a good idea to kind of go against the hive mind, as it were. But I think that even that's strongly overstated. Like the hive mind in a league doesn't really exist. And that's why ADP is so wild compared to your actual draft.
Yeah.
I think that's where Leo Pasiga comes in, and being aware of your league mates is so much more important than most of the other things you could do. I don't do it. I don't have that kind of patience, and I don't like people. But Leo will know what the league mates in his league think and want. They'll know who follows JJ Zacharison's advice so hard that they're going to slightly overdraft a certain wide receiver because that's who JJ likes, and so on and so forth. So the hive mind itself is kind of ethereal when it comes down to an actual league. But yeah, always try to be contrarian when it goes against the best opinion that there can be, which is yours.
But the other part of that is the hive mind. Like we actually end up filtering out a lot of noise by having a lot of opinions aggregated into one opinion, because you take out like the high, the low, and so you end up with that kind of median range. And so and also this community is getting more and more and more plugged in and better and better and better, and so that hive mind is becoming better. And so like I don't think it's necessarily like if you're going to trade out of the 112 for a player in a future first, that's fine. Trading into a player that the community doesn't like is a hard thing, Tim, not only because the hive mind is getting much better at this, and the hive mind is the hive mind because fifth year breakouts don't happen, or because we didn't like his tape, or because it's coming at this from all different directions to come to that same conclusion. So it's not just the hive mind coming from here in a straight path. It's the hive mind coming from all different directions to get to the same place on Leggett. Also, if Leggett hits, again, I think you're going to run into this same thing that we talked about with Bo Nix. If the hive mind thinks he's bad, it's going to take an awful lot for them to come around to see that he's good. They'll wait to see that Leggett fails and say, I told you so, rather than be like, oh, Leggett's good now, I guess I'll trade for him. So it's kind of a twofold thing.
Entirely accurate. Very Leo Pasiga of you, by the way, to consider that what you give up by winning. I'll say this from a statistical point of view. Here's the hive mind. If you want to make projections just as good as Mike Clay, the Mike Clay, ESPN pays him a bunch. He's been doing this for years. He is a fantastic micro analyst projector, right? You just take the consensus of a decent number of sites and project based on that rank. Mika Tanho showed that it was actually just about as accurate as any projector you can mention. And I took it a bit further and created a consensus projector. And yeah, it's just about as good as anyone in any individual in the business. I hate the average, but you have to recognize its power. That what Zach's talking about here is a whole bunch of opinions being compiled into one actually has more consistent and relatively stable results versus an individual who's going to bounce around a lot. So it's actually the best way of going. There's a reason ADP has value, and just defaulting to it and auto draft teams will successfully compete against individuals. It's like saying that a hedge fund manager or someone betting on the stock market has big wins and big losses. But if you just take the statistical, what do they call those? That Warren Buffett says it's the only thing we should really invest in. That very stable stock that never goes very high, but never goes very low either, and just fluctuates in the middle. And at the end, you do just as well. That's the power of the hive mind, if you like. I think we can do a modified version of it, which is kind of what my process, the way it fits into my process is, which is being a contrarian, but there's a way to be a contrarian. Form as educated and good opinions as you can. Good opinions, I know. And find where your opinion successfully actually beats expectation consistently and try to get better at it, and then take small, very few shots against the average, against the hive mind, as it were, when it is strongly parallel to it. It's like in Tyler Boyd in his second year. No one liked him. He had a bad second year, but just by going in there, you got the third year breakout, multiple top 24 seasons, and a lot of extra value. The hive man, for some inexplicable reason, took a rookie who had a pretty good reasons and dropped him 20 rounds in ADP. That was silly. Finding where you strongly or willing to believe your opinion that the hive mind is wrong is a way to be a contrarian. Selective but few shots where you seem to have consistent edges. It's Zach valuing his own rookie hit rate. He knows the ADP. He's going to follow it. Sometimes he's going to take the consensus and follow the average, but he knows when he really strongly disagrees with it, he's going to take a chart on Brian Thomas because that's where he has found his edge. But outside of that, he's not just drafting him 101 because he knows Brian Thomas is good. He's taking a selective shot. You're being a contrarian, you're going against the hive mind, but not just everywhere my mind wanders, I will ignore the power of the consensus rather than hive mind, because the consensus is going to win more consistently and consistently over time. It's just going to get there. That's what we have learned. So you're looking for those few shots where you can reasonably go against it. That's how to be a contrarian.
Yeah, and that's exactly it, Peter, is look for the places in the hive mind where you've already identified the advantage. You've already identified the player you want that the community doesn't value. And so you use the hive mind to get value on that pick rather than trading out and taking somebody that the hive mind that nobody likes. And again, like if you think Leggett is like a great player, go do it. Like that's fine. We're not saying that. Yeah,
like you did. Yep. That pick was perfectly fine for Leggett. You don't have to spend the 105 because you believe in Leggett, because you don't have to spend.
All right.
Yeah. Good point, Dave. And as always, better articulated. Sorry, I will click on the next one, but my hands are busy. Where is this season JMO's last chance of breaking out? I think he's past his last likely chance of breaking out. And as much as I hate to say, injury doesn't really give you a lot of leeway in your first year. It doesn't give you a lot of leeway in your first year. A little bit, we can believe that some of the breakouts that happen outside the typical arc may have been caused by missed seasons or missed partial seasons, but it's still the uncommon occurrence, if you like. We're well past JMO having his window. And the NFL is well past being bored of a player despite his draft capital. Like, it's already given up the sunk cost, if you will. So, yeah, I mean, he's not worth nothing, but that makes him a roster clogger at this point. That's that's where we've come to. It's not can't happen, but it's on the outside of likely. Is this why I tune in, Zach? Your estimations? I think so.
I'm overestimating.
I've overestimated your estimations. Joe Jackson, is QBX a good strategy? I don't like it. I don't think so. But it's not that its ideas don't have value or you can't consistently use it. So in that way, yes. I'm not on board. But I definitely think it's an interesting... It's an actual strategy that has something to it. I don't like it. I don't like playing that way. And I'll try to play almost always. But I really enjoy the conversation. There's definitely something to learn from. That's where I'm at.
I tend to play XQB.
Right.
Which is like...
Tight end.
Well, either that or I have one quarterback and then a whole bunch of guys who used to be quarterbacks who may end up being quarterbacks. So like last year, Flacco. And it was great. It was a beautiful strategy. XQB.
And I think this is a way, Joe. You're trying it. You're giving it a go. Listen to John. Listen to what's the other fellow's name? Tommy B. And
Tommy Blair.
Give it a go. Give it your best shot. And one try isn't enough, but you'll learn something about it. And you might find at least something to take away from it. I think there's significant value there. It's contrary to a lot of the ways I play, so I think that's kind of why I don't like it. But it's definitely viable. There are strategies I've just panned, but robust RB is not a strategy, for example. It doesn't pass the test of what a strategy is. And there was an under-the-helmet way of playing that I robustly, shall we say, disliked. Not only disliked, I disdained. I thought it was terrible. It was based entirely off the 2014 draft class, as if that was going to happen regularly. It was just draft all the wide receivers. It's the worst idea and strategy of playing Dynasty that I've come across. Teams literally failed out over the few years because it was a very compelling strategy after 2014. And a lot of people left Dynasty, or those Dynasty teams died because of it. There are failed strategies. I don't think QBX falls into that category. It has something to it. And there's definitely something that can be applied to most ways of playing by trying to learn some of it or practice some of it. So I don't think it's... don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's terrible. It's just not for me. Puff pass kick. I can Chig... I need Chig to get Chiggy with it this year. Only in a couple of leagues.
Yeah, he's probably
we
not.
don't have good tight ends. Yeah. Just drop him. Mostly. For who? If you draft both Xavier Worthy and Xavier Leggett, one of them will pan out. It's a tank theory. The two tank strategy. There you go.
Except for they're spelled the same, but it's Xavier Worthy and Xavier Leggett. So it's there. I mean, I don't know if it works with the two tanks because they're pronounced differently.
Josh H. I did draft both actually. I want to name my team My Lord and Xavier.
Xavier.
Team names can be fun. Philip J. Fry, 12 teams to flex PPR 0.1 tight end premium. Start 10, 6 points per touchdown. Passing touchdown. Lamar, Kyler Stafford, Kyron Henry, Aaron Jones, CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown, Tyreek London, Cup, Kelsey Ingram. Loaded for bear. London plus 25 first. I like it. I like it so far. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, do it.
For Garrett Wilson, I would do it for Garrett Wilson alone. The fact you're getting another 25, I presume. Yeah, just do that. Just do that.
Yep.
Definitely. Defending champ. Then do it with, gusto, for sure. What if no one wants to trade for a pick? It's difficult. Yeah.
Then you make it.
I don't always know how to make trades happen. There are people who do better at that than me. Like I said, Matt Price is great follow for that reason. And just great guy to have in your league. So is Dynasty Outhouse. But the worst case scenario is you make the pick. As I pointed out, that's fine too.
I find, Genji, though, that if I'm on the clock, I can often get somebody who is like a pick or two or three to move with me and get a little bit of sweetener on top. It may not be exactly what I want, but a little bit of sweetener on top. And once that happens, like once you start trading and once that seal gets broken, you may be able to get that going and move out. But again, like
trades do encourage more trades. I found
yeah,
no one has ever done a trade where someone in your league isn't like, I could have done better than that every time.
and I also think like Peter, and I think he's right about this by and large, doesn't often trade back in rookie drafts. And like I dig that. The only time I do is if I'm trading back because I think that there's a player who is going to be there further back. So like I traded back in the AJ Brown, the what was that 2019? I traded back in the 2020 class because the range of like 205 to 105 to like 108 didn't really, it was fine, but I knew I wanted Jefferson there and I could get Jefferson at 108, 109 every time. So
well, that's you being willing to be a contrarian in a place you know you have a strength. I think that's that's entirely viable. It's just as a
But like I'm not just necessarily trading back to trade back. So if nobody wants a pick, take the best player, like who you identify as the best player. You just kind of have to do that. That's how you win. You hit on that pick, and then you point and laugh as all the people in your league want to trade for that player. Like,
do you have a consensus wide receiver ADP rank on Worthy and Thomas? As far as DLF consensus and Superflex, Worthy is going as 10th player off the board, and Brian Thomas is going off the 9th player off the board. So they're a little low compared to my ranks. Compared to Fantasy Pros, Worthy is the 8th most valuable rookie, and Brian Thomas is the 15th, which is a little concerning because I do think fantasy redrafters know what they're doing as well. They're a little less high on the idea he can have an impact this year, but they are very much in line with me rather than consensus ADP and Zach on Worthy's potential this year, which is encouraging. But again, that's just consensus ranks of Superflex. I think it's a viable, 12 random people in your league may think kind of a draft board instead of waiting for ADP to catch up next month, 12 team Superflex, 4 PPR, start 11. Rebuild it. Give the 101, receive the 105, the 110, the 204. Would likely get May and Ladd. Not sure who at the 204. Given who you would take, I will say no. And mostly I want to acquire future draft capital if I'm building, but I do think the 1 to the 5 is viable. I think that's a strong tier. For me, of first tier prospects, I just kind of don't like your pluses.
So this, again, this is exactly the trade that I talked about on the Dynasty Dummies this past week, Brendan. Like you can move back from 101, get 105, 110, and 204, but I'm not taking Drake May and I'm not taking Ladd McConkey there. I'm going to take Drake May later. I will take at 105. If Neighbors is there, I'm going to take Neighbors. If he's not, I'm going to take Brock Bowers. And then at 110, I'm going to get whoever's left between Brian Thomas and Xavier Worthy and Odunze. Like that's what I'm going to do. And then at 204, I'll figure it out. I'm probably taking if Benson is there, I'll take Benson. If he's not, I would consider taking one of those quarterbacks if they're still there. The Bonix, the Penix, but I'm probably going to take Roman Wilson there at the 204 because that's been the bet that I am making personally, where I think he's a good player and he landed in a great spot that fits exactly what he does.
101.
Kenji likes the 101. I don't blame you. Like, I get the quarterback thing, but like to me, there's a 5-player tier.
If I like the pluses better, and if I didn't think you were going to burn those picks on May and Ladd, I'd say this was better. Something high. Oh, this is no. I don't need nothing. Thank you.
Nice promo code.
Tim, Are you downish on London? Yeah, we were downish on London as a prospect, and while he's had been solid in the NFL, hasn't busted. I haven't seen enough to go, oh, I should have been higher. I'm like, hey, it's pretty good. It's all right.
No.
And yeah, no. Yeah, I guess I'm lowish. I'm downish.
I would not trade JSN straight for London right now. Or no, I would not trade London straight for JSN right now. If you have London, I would not trade him straight for JSN right now.
No, London's got less risk, but I think JSN's got. I like him better as a prospect, so I don't think it's even because the value's off. Yeah. So trade London for something else, then trade for JSN. My way of thinking,
or trading for JSN plus, like either way. But
yeah. As for a plus, at least JSN should come with a plus on London, but I would prefer the JSN plus side. Yeah, I think that. Yeah. Travis EDM for 25 first plus Pollard and why? I take ETN. Pollard's probably a little undervalued in Dynasty right now, but there's a reason he was a move. There's a reason he wasn't as successful when he finally got volume. It's a Lamar Miller thing. The 25 first is nice, but ETN should be worth more than a first plus Pollard, who's slightly less than you're basically getting a first and a second for Travis ETN, who should be worth at least 2 firsts. Especially in this running back landscape. ETN's a little hard to trade right now. I've got him in a place where I'd rather trade him. And despite the dearth of running back value and young running back value and the wealth of ETN lovers there were last year, they're suddenly not willing to trade for him at what would be fair value, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm ending up keeping ETN more than I'm trading him right now.
And he should, honestly, he should smash again this year.
He'll be.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to see. It's hard to see him not being successful. So, like, I'm with you. I'd hang on to the ETN side, even though you get to 25 first, and it's like, ooh, maybe. But
and 25 first is nice. If you're building, I might be more interested because in season Pollard might be tradable, but you're definitely trading below value. So I don't like it. All right, I guess I'll go Brooks, Worthy, Thomas. Here and then snag Benson at 201. Yeah. And Benson is more than snaggable at 201. Yeah, he's there pretty consistently. If Caleb finishes as a QB 10, he will have had a fantastic rookie season, by the way.
Yes.
In points per game, is he Dynasty 101?
No.
I mean, Stroud didn't jump. Stroud didn't jump Mahomes. I think he could jump Allen because I'm with Zach. I think Josh Allen might be a little bit of a struggle bus for what we're used to from him. And I think that's a little unfair. I think he would be coming down a little far, but maybe. But I don't think he'd become the 101.
No.
I think he'd be up there with Stroud, Mahomes, Hurts. And I have Allen, Mahomes, Hurts in a separate tier. I don't think he breaks into that. But I definitely won't put him above him. Is that around where you're at, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty close to being. Like, I think he's in that tier below the top tier if he
Kyler,
finishes.
Herbert.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be great. Don't get me wrong. Have all the value. Is giving up Kyler for London, Brooks, and Debo dumb? Kyler Murray in a superflex for London, Brooks, Debo. I'm not going to call you dumb, Joe, no matter what the trade is. I would rather have Kyler's side. I'm assuming you have plethora of QB value, so you don't mind going down a quarterback here. I think Brooks's upside is too shallow. London's upside, we just mentioned, I'm not as high in it. I think Debo's the most highest outcome potential you got here, and his value is really subdued right now.
Tank, yeah.
So, and he's older. So I don't think you're getting enough in return, just flat out.
And I think that's the thing is you're not getting enough future value. So Joe, to me, I think of value in as 3 different components. So you've got obviously like the points value, which the London Brooks Debo side probably wins overall with the points. But then you've also got like the future value and then the perceived value. I think the future value and perceived value on the London Brooks and Debo side is lacking, especially the future value, or maybe it's the perceived value, but like that like trying to project out. People are already kind of writing off Debo. People are already quasi writing off London, and then Brooks is a who knows running back in Carolina. So it's not a bad trade, but it's not what I want for pieces coming back to get me this year, but also beyond this year, and maintaining value and points.
I want Bajan for Kyler. I think even Bajan's shooting a little low, but it's probably even. It's probably okay.
Yeah.
I like Bajan Robinson a lot, but I love Kyler's value right now. I've loved it the last couple of years in Superflex, so it's hard to really see me changing now. Caleb has more hype than Stroud. I would say. I mean, maybe walk in different circles, but the NFL, true to the bone, NFL fans hate Caleb Williams. They want him to fail. Yeah. I think he's more Kyler Murray. Like, even when he's good, it's going to still be an uphill struggle to make anyone believe that it was real. I think that's where we're at. Okay, Caleb.
I mean, but
stupid as it is, and it's very stupid.
in Dynasty, though, I think probably Stroud, Caleb Williams has more hype than Stroud coming in.
I think
Stroud
that's
was kind of Stroud was kind of the like 1B, and Caleb Williams, most people have him as the 1. Although I still think Jaden Daniels is in that same. I like Jaden Daniels. I like a lot.
So you want only 3 years of high-end running back production for 8 years of top 5 QB production. Well, Joe, you're thinking of giving it up for 2, maybe top 24 seasons in Drake London, maybe another top 12 season in Debo over the next 3 years, and a top 24 season or 2 in Brooks. So, again, I think Bijan Robinson is probably a better trade, but it's still, still low.
Well, I think Kyler was top 5. Everybody undervalues Kyler.
Yeah. And he didn't even paint his fingernails, as far as we know. I think Kyler's top 5 QB. Yeah. Yeah, I think he's in my second tier where they all have the potential to be consistent top 5 QBs for a year or two here and there over the next 10. Like Herbert, again. Yeah. He has been, and I think will be again in points as well. Lloyd or Rice? Lloyd.
Yeah, but it's mostly an ADP.
Close. It's an ADP thing, yeah. Bajan will be longer than lasting than 3 years, not in terms of his value, Genji, to be fair. She's right on the fact that running back value is a tanker's dream, He's like CMC. We see CMC as his upside. And I'm flabbergasted we're able to get people to recognize CMC's value for as long as we have. But even remember last year, the year before, when was it we were here saying we should buy into CMC? Was it last offseason or the offseason?
No, it was two because he was coming off the ankle sprain, like coming off the year after the ankle sprain, and he wasn't as good.
And we were CMC. Yeah. People are always ready to tank running backs values, even CMC. So even if Bijan Robinson is literally CMC, which would be like we see that as an upside potential, and there'll still be a injury which tanks his value 1 year and he's viable. Got Caleb Neighbors, Worthy, Thomas Brooks so far this draft. That's an excellent draft. I enjoy that draft. Thanks. Good job, Genji.
Should have got a Dunze.
You made your point. Yeah, sorry. That's a little harsh. I'm going to keep Kyler then.
The other thing, Joe, with Kyler, they just got him the Cadillac of wide receivers in this class. Like
this is the year to hold on if you're going to hold on.
Yeah.
And I think Kyler's value is too low right now in general. Like, you can trade, no, you have to keep Kyler. I think if you really want to get rid of Short King there, just like Zach said, I think this is going to be another good year for him. I think it's going to be hard to ignore, and you're going to be able to get a better trade when you see some of that anyway. But because I think his value is too low. But it is your team, and if you see more upside in London than me or Zach, then that becomes more viable. But that's what you're betting on. Know your bet and make it. I have two, Joe. We all have some Kyler in our lives if we're lucky. And with Richardson and Caleb, well, oh, you have Kyler with Richardson. Trade Richardson. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I have him higher than Richardson.
Who would you try to get out of Addison this year could kill his value? I still have hope. I like buying into sophomores, so I keep part of a strategy, and Addison's one of them. I think we strongly overrate QB effect. I also think it should be a down year, but I'm more worried about the upsides. I'm more worried about someone else.
The one thing I will say, though, is with Addison, the way I would maneuver that, I would not try to get into a wide receiver with him. I would try to get into a tight end, because I think you could, like, the Addison range is pretty close to like Mark Andrews depressed value, George Kittle depressed value, Brock Bowers, oh no, he went to the Raiders depressed value. Like, I think you're pretty close to being able to get into those players. And if I can get into an elite tight end from Jordan Addison, who is a really good wide receiver, I'd do that. I don't necessarily think, like, I'm not necessarily worried about his value being killed by this year, although I do think that if McCarthy is the starter there, I think it's probably depressed volume, which doesn't help, but it doesn't make Jordan Addison a bad receiver.
I'm pretty convinced I'm a player in the NFL, and as I was as a rookie. That's the Addison thing. Like, someone traded Addison for me thinking this, but he traded into the Brian Thomas pick. I was going to take Brian Thomas, and he ended up taking Brian Thomas. I have Addison in that kind of value range, but I have the solidity of a good rookie season. So I'm okay segueing over in that tier for the plus of a good rookie season, if you know what I mean. If Bowers is in that range, I think switching positions is always a really smart way to make sure you get a good trade. I would go take Bowers because I have him higher than Brian Thomas, if nothing else. I think Bowers is a good target there for sure. And if you just want out of the McCarthy show, and I don't blame you. In one league, I have Mahomes, Kyler, Jaden Daniels, and Penix. That's my only comment. Is someone going to give you the value you deserve for those quarterbacks? I mean, when you will need to trade them. The reason I like stacking up these top five, or Daniels hasn't done it yet, but we strongly believe he could. And Penix is we argued about this last week. I think he's going to present value. The thing about having those quarterbacks is they're scoring you difference-making points. That's what you want them for. And they have this epic career arc, and they're ranked in the top, 6 of Dynasty forever. And when your team's struggling, then you can go look for trades. There's no really reason to trade them. You have the upside you're looking for. These are the droids you're looking for. And it's only really a building situation. Like, I had my DLF team I'm now building on. I had these quarterbacks, and I sold 2 of them, Lamar. And I think it was just Lamar, actually. There might have been another one. I've ended up keeping Mahomes because I just haven't found a good trade for him. And what I got out of Lamar is I had 2 firsts next year. I know I sold Kittle, 3 firsts in 2026, and I still had a core of like Mahomes, a couple of decent running backs, now Jordan Addison, Jalen Waddle, and a tight end that's worth starting. So I still had a relatively competitive squad, and I suddenly had all this draft capital for the price of selling off a few assets and an elite quarterback. Like, that for me is why they're so nifty to have in Superflex, because when your team isn't making the elite roster, as it were, in the top 5, you can immediately flip your team not into a building team, but a built and ready to start competing team. And I love that about them, to be honest. So Herbert, Lamar Jackson, they're great for doing that. That's what I think. So yeah, she can when she needs to, but she doesn't need to. And this was a monkey hear no evil, heart, and banana. So that's pretty good. Monkey loves banana, maybe. Probably a simpler interpretation. No one let me trade up for the 109 and Dunze went to 107. That stinks. Yeah, I tried to get just ahead of Matt Price to get Worthy in that same draft, and no one would let me do it. And then Matt Price held that pick for ransom, and I just could not do the trade.
I had a draft where J Mike traded into the pick in front of mine in every single round. Pain.
Pain bot. Yeah.
Yeah.
No one wanted Richardson, so now that only means Richardson is Josh Allen, I guess. I mean, Zach says, I up left or right?
Yeah, that's it. That's what I said. I up
eyes. Right. I'm bad at emojis. If you want to communicate with me, emojis is not the way. I'm just saying.
Look over there. Like we hit the end.